Guys, time is the only resource that we can't get more of. And I want to commit as much time as possible to putting out content that helps more people just like you. The only way that I can do that is if you like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Please give me feedback and help me help you. Selling a hip with a Medicare Advantage plan.
Okay.
Rob,
Sure.
this is your specialty, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So are we ringing again?
yeah, let's say here I'll say, well, the Medicare Advantage plan does sound like the route that I would like to go, but I really need to understand the prices on these things. Some people say that these things are free, and they come with dental, vision, and hearing, but you're saying that there is some out of pocket with it. I like the idea with the Medicare supplement, but that's a little expensive for my price range, so I don't know what to do.
Sure. Well, Miss Martha, those are great questions and great concerns to have. And so when I sit down and talk with somebody about a Medicare Advantage plan, I like to make sure that I can help shield them against any out-of-pocket or any gaps the Medicare Advantage plan may have. And so we call that a hospital indemnity plan, but just to keep it real simple, I just call it gap insurance. Does that make sense? It just fills in the gaps where you may not be shielded with the Medicare Advantage plan.
Now, remind me of what these gaps are, and are all of them shielded, or what's the difference in this and just having that Plan G you were telling me about?
Sure. Well, with the Plan G, all you simply do is pay your premium, and then you have to meet that $203, what is called the Part B deductible. With the Medicare Advantage plan, you have co-pays built into the plan. But the main thing I want to shield you against is when you go inpatient in the hospital, because these MA plans or Medicare Advantage plans say that you're responsible for those first 5 to 7 days in the hospital. And so by putting...
You have to pay all of it?
You have to pay all of it, but with the gap insurance, we can structure it in such a way where you're shielded against that.
Somebody
and you don't
told
have
me
to
it's
worry
just a
about that.
daily copay for the first 5 days on their plan.
Well, it is a daily copay that you have. It can be anywhere from $265 to $295. And when you meant all of it, I thought you meant like all the first 5 to 7 days. I get what you're saying now. So let's rewind. No, Miss Martha, you don't have to pay all of it. It's just a daily copay. It can be anywhere from $265 and up. But the reality is, if you're in there for 7 days, most of my clients that I have don't have 14 to 2100 just laying around in the the table, so to speak.
Okay. So this plan covers that, and is that the only hole with the Medicare
No,
Advantage
there's
plan?
other holes in it as well. You also have it with some outpatient copays. There's it doesn't cover there's an ambulance rider copay that you have to pay, and so this gap plan helps shield you against that if you were to be in those scenarios.
So here's where I think this is how Rob does it too. If we're starting from the beginning in the pitch,
Sure.
And you can tee it up appropriately, he would have already sold it earlier in the conversation.
Sure.
But we stayed from the get go. So we would compare Medicare and a supplement versus Medicare Advantage, unless Medicare with a supplement is off the table for them automatically. If it's off the table automatically, let's say it's a disability Medicare case where it's not available, or they don't have a supplement and they can't pass underwriting, or they already have a supplement but it's $400 a month and they're just going to cancel it, then I'm pivoting right into the Medicare Advantage pitch. But if I'm teeing it up from the get-go, I'm saying this is a Medicare supplement, and you have a $203 Part B deductible, and this Plan G covers everything else. And you can go to any doctor you want to, and that's great, but it does come with a price tag, and that price can go up over time. Whereas the Medicare Advantage plan is going to be much less expensive and come with additional benefits.
Absolutely.
That is the pro to it. It's also cheaper, is much cheaper. We do recommend with that plan we get a hospital indemnity plan with a lump sum cancer rider here, because there are some hefty copays and out-of-pocket for outpatient radiation and chemotherapy. There are some hefty daily hospital copays, and we can kind of head all that off at the pass by having this plan. Now, there are still some copays and some potential out-of-pocket with the plan that we just cannot shield you against, unfortunately, but it might fit more into your budget if we go this route. Now, the biggest con on the Medicare Advantage plan is you do have to operate in a network. So if you want to go and see if this less expensive option is better for you, the first thing that I would do is go in and look up your doctors. Okay, Mrs. Johnson, we've looked up your doctors. They are all in the network, so that's good to know, and your prescriptions were all covered in there. So this Medicare Advantage plan with the hospital indemnity plan and lump sum cancer rider is going to be about $66 a month total, and it does come with those extra dental, vision, and hearing benefits, versus that Medicare supplement is going to be $143
Right.
with no dental, vision, and hearing. If we add the dental, vision, and hearing, that'd be another $40 or $50 a month there. Which one fits your budget more, and which one are you comfortable with? That's the pitch there. You know, you have to. For us, we're never going to be the people, and there's a lot of people out there that are just pushing Advantage so heavy on people that they're not
Right.
getting into a couple of the nuances. We're okay selling Medicare Advantage, but we want people to know it is not a Plan G.
Right.
And but we're saying we can cover some of that, and we can alleviate. So where a lot of people set themselves up is they pigeonhole to MedSup or Medicare Advantage. We try our best now to have an open concept to each side, and just make it a monetary versus flexibility conversation. And somebody coming off Obamacare HMO that's happy with that, they're probably gonna like a PPO or HMO Medicare Advantage plan better. Most of the time, unless they were heavily subsidized and getting everything for free. So it's an evolving market because of the expectations of people now. The MedSup side, you know, is still much better for people. That extra $50, $60, $70 is not a big deal, because the flexibility is amazing with it.
One of the things we had at our seminar, or questions we had at our seminar last night, was a lady asked at the end, because, you know, in our seminar we compare, you know, kind of give a 30,000-foot view. But I know maybe somebody hasn't asked this question, but they may be thinking about what are some scenarios, I mean, you've been in the industry longer than I have, that you go, I mean, obviously you just gave one for Obamacare, but what is another, maybe one or two scenarios that you would say Medicare Advantage would be better for someone?
So most of the time it's going to come down to cost. I'm still of the mindset that you should if somebody's turning 65, for instance, you know, and they're in a state where a Medicare supplement for a turning 65-year-old is under $150 a month for a Plan G or Plan N, you should definitely lead with the Medicare supplement. As far as when I say lead, I'm not like, we're not trashing the Medicare Advantage plan, because sometimes you end up shooting yourself in the foot when you find out that somebody else has talked to them about Medicare Advantage and they're already sold on that level of cost. What we see a lot of times is people leading Medicare Advantage, and then it's almost impossible to bring them back to MedSup, because you're having to reprogram their mind as to what Medicare actually costs. But they never really understood the Medicare Advantage plan from the get-go. People coming off group coverage, though, I mean, I'd say almost any under 65 health person is going to be comfortable in Medicare Advantage. When we talk about Medicare Advantage having its quirks and issues, and there are a lot of Medicare Advantage haters out there, I think that we would all in the room love to have a Medicare Advantage plan in comparison to what we have.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at it, when you're comparing it to a Medicare supplement, Medicare supplements are great because you have original Medicare and a supplement. You go to any doctor and almost everything's paid for. They don't do a lot of prior authorization, and they don't do a lot of that mess. But there's no coverage that anyone has ever had prior to Medicare, unless they were in Congress or had maybe TRICARE or something, that was as adequate as a Medicare and a supplement. I don't know if Medicare and a supplement will continue forever. I don't know what the future landscape of Medicare looks like. But one of the reasons Medicare and a supplement is so good is Medicare is run by the government, and they don't do a lot of checks and balances on claims. Medicare Advantage does have checks and balances on claims, and so sometimes they are a little bit like, well, you're going to have to prove that Mrs. Johnson needs to be in your skilled nursing facility for 100 days, because we think, you know, for this situation she needs to be in for 16, and at the end of that, you know, you'll have to prove that she needs to be in there. Right. Is that bad? Well, if it's your grandmother and your doctor's telling you she needs to be in there for 100 days, you think it's bad. But if you're running a company, you should have checks and balances. So I can't really be mad at a Medicare Advantage company for doing that. Right. And I think we have to dispel this myth that Medicare and a supplement is always the way to go, because really the best thing about it is that they do not check the doctor's, prescription. And that's great when you're on it. but it's really probably a huge heavy cost to the taxpayer, and it's just not their money. It's the government. It's not their money. It's a bureaucracy. They'll just tax more to pay for it. Whereas a company has to be profitable, and that's why there's checks and balances on the claims process.
Right.
Which there's that checks and balances on almost every other product under 65. So Medicare Advantage is still much better than any other under 65 health plan. It's just not as good as you can go anywhere and everything's paid for and nobody asks you any questions. So, but of course, I'm not saying that to knock Medicare supplements. We're still at 80+% Medicare supplements.
So we did a poll in the group. You sell more MedSup or Med Advantage, and it was about 59% Med Advantage.
Yeah. Well, that's, a lot of the evolving sales are coming from the final expense market. Now, flipping the script here, Medicare Advantage is often sold by people who are told by an upline that their clients are Medicare Advantage clients because they're poor.
Right.
Well, what does poor mean? If they're not dual eligible Medicare and Medicaid, then they could be a Medicare supplement client. Any LIS level over that, it's all about priorities. For some people, their health care is more important to them than anything,
Right.
and so that priority can be very different depending on the person. Yeah. So I think the final expense agents that are pivoting to the Medicare space are pushing Medicare Advantage because they're being told that's what their client wants, and they don't think about the budget the same way. If I look at somebody and they're making $1,300 a month, I'm like, how do they live? But let's say they got their house paid off, their cars paid off, they maybe have $70,000 or $80,000 in their checking account from when they rolled their 401k directly to their checking account because they didn't have Rob to advise them a different way. Those people are very frugal, living off of just a little bit of money, and for them paying $150 a month for a Medicare supplement to not have to worry about it is like the flooring retirement approach, and some of them want to do that. So don't pigeonhole yourself by thinking, oh, they're making $1,300 a month, Medicare Advantage client. Now, if they're making that and they live in New York City, they need to move. But if they're living in rural, Midwest or Southeast or even some of the rural areas in some of these other states, they might want the Medicare supplement. So I'd say almost every scenario you want to pitch both and tell them the difference and explain it. Even if you walk into a house and somebody already has a Medicare Advantage plan, I think it's fair to say that being a good advisor and a good steward of Medicare knowledge and keeping the relationship between CMS and agents and carriers good, you should say, hey, did anybody ever explain the difference in the two programs? And explain it. And boy, you'll build trust with them when you're the first person that ever explained the differences. Even if they just swap their Medicare Advantage plan with you. I bet you 60% of the time you're the first person that ever told them the difference between Medicare and a supplement and a Medicare Advantage plan. So, any other role-playing things?
My doctor says I'm better off with just Medicare.
What I would say is, oh, that's interesting. I've helped a lot of Medicare beneficiaries. I've never heard that. Sounds like potentially an unorthodox opinion. Are you talking about your primary care doctor? Okay, so your primary care doctor says that. Well, to be honest, if you were only going to go see the primary care doctor forever, you probably would be better off with just Medicare because his bills are not that expensive. But he's probably not intimately involved in the billing for chemotherapy, radiation, kidney dialysis, kidney transplants, liver transplants, open heart surgery, or any number of other things that can come up and do come up as people get older. So I think maybe, for just him, he'd probably rather you be on just Medicare. But from our perspective, I think you should definitely consider multiple options, like Medicare Advantage or Medicare supplements, because those have stop losses or caps on what your potential out-of-pocket is. And some of them don't cost you anything and even have additional benefits. So let's just explore those different options, and then let's break down with Medicare A and B what your potential out-of-pocket is if you went just that route. Then I'd go into talking about the Part A deductible, the Part A daily hospital copay, the Part B coinsurance, and tell them how the 20% is uncapped. And then I'd say, mathematically, how do you think your doctor is rationalizing that? I mean, this is the math. So that's what I would say to that. I mean, I don't think you're gonna get that very often unless their doctor is David Belk.
Yeah. So
But-
I know that there's two questions that kind of go together. A rebuttal, I guess, I have employer coverage, and then another question is selling cancer plans with the client who already has a cancer plan with their group.
Say that again.
Selling a cancer plan to somebody who already has a cancer plan with their group coverage.
Okay, but they're losing their group coverage, but they can keep their cancer plan, is that?
Well, so again, there was two different questions. One, Miles Mitchell asked for the rebuttal to, I have employer coverage, and then somebody else that can like go over the scenario of selling cancer plans with the client who already has a cancer plan through their group coverage.
Okay, so the cancer plan in itself, somebody that doesn't have a cancer plan already, if you're selling them a Medicare supplement, if you're selling them a Medicare Advantage plan, the ideal situation is to have the hospital indemnity plan with the lump sum cancer policy, just because they still have to pay 20% of their chemo and radiation up to the maximum out of pocket. So you want to give them like a $15,000 lump sum cancer policy so that they can pay that when they're diagnosed. It just pays on diagnosis. If you're looking back at the Medicare supplement client, a lot of people say, why do they need a cancer policy? Well, we sell it based on the drug benefit, because even with the at the maximum or catastrophic level of drug coverage, it's covering 95% of their cost of their drugs. 5% of Revlimid or some of these other ones that are out there can be very hefty. And while you can't protect them from every single cancer or every single drug that's out there, and costs like Tecfidera is really expensive for multiple sclerosis, there's no policy for that. But there is a policy for cancer, which is a very common thing to take expensive medication. So one of the things I bring up to them is sometimes we use that Kaiser Family Foundation chart that shows the cost of cancer drugs and what you would pay in the catastrophic phase of Part D, which if you haven't seen it, we'll throw it in the group later. But what I bring up is the cost of those drugs, how the drug coverage works, what their cost would be on that, and how we can kind of protect them from a couple years worth of catastrophic drug costs. And I use the first diagnostic policy because I just say, a lot of these other policies that have X riders for all this goofy stuff end up you paying a premium, and if you don't have exactly that billing code, it may not ever pay anything out. But with a lump sum diagnosis policy, as soon as you're diagnosed, you get it. And we can sell them from $5,000 benefit to $100,000 benefit. So if they already have a policy, so it depends on the scenario. I had one the other day that I was talking about it, and I was like, oh, you already have a cancer policy. Well, you may not need that. I said, but most of the time you don't want to say, no, your cancer policy sucks. You don't know what's in their cancer policy. It may be good. So what you want to do is say, well, what company is your cancer policy with? And so that's great. People that get cancer policies early on, a lot of times lock in a great rate. I'd love to see what's in there. Do you know what the lump sum benefit is? And then when they talk about their lump sum benefit, they say, well, I don't know. I know it pays me $75 a year for a cancer screening and all that. And I say, well, what company is it? And they say Aflac. I'll say, well, I'm not sure how that one works. A lot of times the one you get with your group coverage are meant to supplement the inadequacies in group coverage. The ones that we sell are meant to supplement the inadequacies in Medicare and a supplement. So that's why we really harp the lump sum benefit, because if you have Medicare and a Plan G, you can go to any doctor for cancer and all of your cancer treatment is going to be paid for. What we're looking at is that drug portion, and that's why the lump sum diagnosis benefit is so much more important, because you can take that money and use it for whatever you want to use it for. So that is how I would sell it. And if they already have a cancer policy, sometimes they have an affinity for it. But hey, if it's like $10 a month, just say, well, yeah, you should probably keep that one. That one's a steal, but we don't want to make sure you have adequate first diagnosis. So this one here is made to supplement your Medicare. You can get them to keep the other one. It's not always, let me get them to cancel the other policy. This kind of gets into, like, a lot of times people are thinking so cheaply they want to cancel another policy. Gets into, like, when you're quoting life insurance and somebody says, I have a $10,000 final expense policy and I'm paying, $50 a month for it, and then you're reshopping it and you're like, oh, I can get you $10,000 for $40. What you ought to say is, I can get you $13,000 for the same price. Increase the benefit and spend the entire budget. They're already comfortable with that. It doesn't always have to be cheaper. Everything doesn't always have to be cheaper. When you go after that cheaper mentality, you know, I have to cancel that one to sell you another one. Well, that cancer policy is good. $10 a month, $14 a month for that, you know, benefit. I'd keep it. It's been working for you so far. We just want to make sure that you have the one that you need to help with the drug coverage. You can sell them a different cancer policy. And if they say, well, I really don't want to pay for two, tell them to, you know, pull out the policy and start going through the policy with them. Look at what the lump sum benefit is. Say, well, I do think this one would be more adequate for the other coverage, but I'm not trying to get you to cancel that one. It sounds like it's a good policy too. Just make them make the decision. And then sometimes they'll say, well, I'm going to cancel this one and get yours. And sometimes they're still going to say, I'm going to keep mine and I don't want another one. And that's fine. But if you don't pitch it, you're never going to sell it. And most of the time you can win them over if you're not afraid to talk about it. Anything else?
Let's see.
You don't want to use it all in one.
Yeah, so nobody. Really any more questions?
Well, then
Someone asked what is the best time to call T65 leads, around 6 months out? What do you say to someone you talk to that is more than 6 months away from coming on Medicare to lock in a future appointment?
I'd say if you're calling people more than 6 months out, which I think is increasingly more common, I wouldn't like call a cold list, but if you have a lead that comes in that's further out, just get on the phone and educate them like you normally would, and just, you know, tell them that they're outside of that enrollment period. If they're a Medicare supplement, you know, prospect though, then, you know, you want to talk to them, educate them like they're right there at the time, and then set up the appointment for when they're within their window. I mean, normally they're not more than 7 or 8 months out, so you can set up the follow-up appointment then. I think in those, it's not a sales presentation, it's just winning them over with education and being the best resource for them. Be the best solution to a problem out there. So don't be an opportunistic solution only. Like, don't be like, I can only talk to you if I can sell you today. Like, that's goofy, and it goes against all the principles of branding and being a resource. So I think that's it for today. We're going to try to do this in the morning so that we can get some more engagement out there, and I hope it helps everybody, and we'll try to have some other plans. Tuesdays will be more technical for Technical Tuesday. Thursdays will be Thirsty Thursday, so everybody bring, you know, some Carvassier or, you know, Hypnotic, whatever. I'm just kidding, don't do that. So thanks guys for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Guys, time is the only resource that we can't get more of, and I want to commit as much time as possible to putting out content that helps more people just like you. The only way that I can do that is if you like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Please give me feedback and help me help you.